Hey, hey everyone. Thanks for joining this session today about Stanford Domains. I am Varshini Krishnamurthy from UIT ET. I'm going to talk about what is Stanford Domains, what it's intended for, with a special focus on PHP version. I want to take about 10 to 20 seconds to ask people who have joined me here, what are your expectations and what you hope to get out of this session today? So I'm going to maybe pause for a few seconds and if someone wants to unmute and speak. Okay, I'm going to continue. Uh, so uh, If you have any questions anytime during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. Larry Dillard is monitoring the chat for me. Thanks, Larry. And the presentation includes some URLs. I have compiled a link, a slide in the end with the list of all the URLs I'm going to be talking about throughout the presentation, all in one place. And also I have some QR codes here and there. So if you want to readily access some URLs that I think could be helpful, keep your phones ready. So let's get started. So what is Stanford Domains? It's a place where you can host your website for your lab, for your project, for your personal portfolio, anything you want to create a website for. It is a shared hosting service. So what it means is the bandwidth and the resources are shared among all the other cPanels that are hosted on domains. I'm going to be talking about this term cPanel throughout my presentation. So for anyone who might not know what a cPanel is, it's just a slice of the server which is allocated for you to manage your web content, to host your files, to basically run your website. So when a cPanel is created upon your request, it's allocated 1 GB disk space, which I think is plenty for a website or even a couple of websites if you decide to host multiple sites within your cPanel. I will also talk a little bit more on how to save space so that you could stay within the 1 GB quota limit. It is possible to share your cPanel with other lab mates or your other colleagues or anyone else with an active SONET ID. So one cPanel can have multiple owners. My team can do this for you if you raise a request with us. I have provided link in the last slide on how to reach us, how to raise the support ticket. And also cPanels can be transferred, which means you could transfer your content into Stanford Domains or out of Stanford Domains. Specifically, if you have a WordPress site, there are WordPress plugins which you could install and you could easily migrate them in and out. It is always recommended to take backups before making any changes. cPanel owners or owners are responsible for installing the application from the content management system, which is the CMS. They are responsible for staying up to date. The login to Stanford Domains dashboard is SSO enabled. What it means is when you log into the homepage, domains.stanford.edu, it will take you through a single sign-on and you will land on the dashboard for the cPanel that you have access to. Not just this, but any application that you install within your cPanel can have its own SSO. You could enable SSO if it's supported. And also workgroup integration for WordPress application. We do have a good documentation on how to enable SSO for WordPress. So do check out our support page. I'm also going to be talking about how to access our support documents. And then you do have access to the file manager. So every time you create a domain within your cPanel, it's going to create a file system for the domain and you could manage your files through that. You could also access the file system by SSH through the terminal, which means you will have to create your SSH keys. But when you do that, make sure you follow best practice and you share your keys only with trusted people. So who are we? UIT, my team, we are the primary point of contact for all campus-wide users who use Stanford domains. We maintain the relationship with our cloud vendor, which is Reclaim Hosting, and we help with any infrastructure help, such as if you want to share your cPanel with a colleague, or if your website is not accessible, if you have disk space issues, or in general, if you want us to raise a support ticket and work with the vendor, we can do that for you. We do have a UIT service page that has information about Stanford domains that you can check out, where we also talk about data security and our governance policy. That's the QR code if you want to check out right away. And we also have a lot of good FAQs and documentation on our support page. This is just a teaser on how our support page looks. So you don't need to have a cPanel on domains to access this site. This is open to anyone with a SUNAT ID, and you can check out if you want to scan the QR code. So this is how a Stanford domains landing page, domains.stanford.edu, is going to look. So if you go to domains.stanford.edu, you are going to see this page. And if you want to take a look at it now. So the get started link is going to help you create a request for a cPanel if you are a new user. And there are a bunch of links on the top right. For example, the home tab is going to land you in the landing page, and the interest form takes you to a form where you can submit the purpose for creating a domain cPanel. So we do not look at every interest form submission, as we just don't have the bandwidth to do that, but we like to get a general idea on what you might be using the cPanel for. We do not use the interest form for taking support requests. That happens through the ServiceNow help ticket, but we still like to know what the cPanels are being used for. In addition, we have the support and the FAQ page links on the top right tab. And how do you get access to Stanford domains? So basically, any user with an active SUNAT ID can request for a cPanel. To get access to domains, you can log on to domains.stanford.edu and either use the dashboard link on the top right that I just showed you, or you could just go to domains.stanford.edu and /dashboard. If you are an existing user, it's going to take you to your cPanel directly, or if you are a new user, it's going to show you a page like this where you could request for a cPanel. This box is where you would provide a name for your cPanel, and it's always in the format something.su.domains. So now you are here, and now you want to create a cPanel, and you are thinking, what should I name my cPanel? So when you choose a name for your cPanel, think of what you would use it for. Are you going to just play around? Are you going to create it because you are attending this presentation today and you're just curious? Are you going to create it for your lab work? So depending on what you will need it for, I would suggest think of a name, because if it's just for a personal profile or a portfolio, maybe your SUNAT ID is good. But if you want to use it for your lab work or your coursework, maybe try using your lab name or a generic name that you probably will be passing on to your successors or your colleagues. And then you could also publish it externally if you wanted. But once you create a cPanel, it's not possible for you to rename it. So think about it before you create the cPanel. So some examples of cPanels that we currently host are Wearable. We have Radiology Web. We have Ram's Head. So Ram's Head is a theatrical society run by students, and I've seen them pass on the website, their cPanel from one batch to another as students graduate, but they still maintain the same cPanel because it's named after their theatrical name. So now that you know there is an option for Stanford Domains. You checked it out. You also created a cPanel. Once you come to Domains dashboard, this is how your cPanel is going to look like. So this is the URL. If you wanted to bookmark it, maybe you'll be logging into it every day. I like to bookmark it. So that's the URL. If you want to directly go to your dashboard. So I wanted to talk about a couple things on this page. For example, the name of your cPanel. So this is what you created when you requested for a cPanel that I just showed you. So when you submit a help ticket to my team for anything, the first thing we're going to ask you is what cPanel are you referring to? Because remember, a user could have more than one cPanel access if it's being shared with them. So we want to know exactly which cPanel you are talking about. So my first question or my team's question is going to be what's the cPanel you are referring to? That information you could get from here. And also another useful metric that I like to keep an eye on is the disk usage. Because every cPanel has a disk quota limit. And if you exceed it or if you are very close to the limit, your backups or your patches that you set up overnight could fail, and you might wake up in the morning seeing an email that your backup failed because you don't have enough space. So you could monitor it or maybe come in here, take a look and see where you stand in terms of disk space. So now let me pause my presentation. I want to switch over to my cPanel and just show you how things look. So this is my domains dot. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see you.
This is my domains.stanford.edu dashboard. So this is my landing page where I will land. As I said, that's the name of your cPanel and disk usage. So you see a lot of applications that are listed here. So these are some of the maybe most widely used apps like WordPress or Omeka. But when you go under all applications, this will list all the applications that you can install using the CMS, the content management system. And you come in here and you decide what you want to use your website for. If you want to do a wiki or if you want to do WordPress. So this is where you come in and install your app. And once you install the app, it's all going to be listed under My Apps. So here is where you can see all the applications that you have installed on your cPanel. And when you have an application, there are options to clone it, to back it up, and you could edit it anytime. So to clone an application, it comes in very handy when you want to test your website. You don't want to make changes on your live website. You might want to clone it into a subdomain, test your changes, make your changes, test your changes, make sure everything looks good, and then you promote it to production. So you have a little testing area. So the cloning option becomes very helpful when you want to do minor changes to your website without actually touching the production right away. So you just come into your applications and then you have the option to clone it. And it's going to ask, where do you want to clone it? It's going to list out all the destinations available, and then you hit clone. You can also back up your application, and all your backups are available under My Backups here. If you decide to back them up on the same platform, or you can also back up your applications outside on Google Drive. That's going to save up a lot of space that you take up on your cPanel. So our recommendation is to move backups to Google Drive or another shared platform. You could do that by selecting the backup, and you could choose a new backup location, and these are all the options available. And when you're happy with the setup, you could just click backup and it's going to do your backup. So when you come back to the dashboard, You also have access to Jet Backup. This is provided by our vendor Reclaim Hosting. So this Jet Backup, you could do a full cPanel backup, or you could do a file-based backup, and you could choose how far you want to go to retrieve and restore from your backup. And it's all listed in the Jet Backup option. And this is the file manager I was just talking about. Every time you create a subdomain, you could choose if you want to share the directory with the root directory for your cPanel, or if you want to keep it separate. So it's going to create a file directory for each of your domains, and you could manage your file systems here. There is much more. I can just keep going, but these are a few points I just wanted to point out. Let me go back to my presentation. So what's new in 2025? Last year in December, we had a server move from our old hardware to newer hardware. This was vendor driven, and we worked with Reclaim Hosting to facilitate this move. This change should have been transparent to all our users when you try to log into your cPanel or access your app admin console, or even access the website. But it was a vendor-driven upgrade that we did last year. And PHP version 7x and 8.0, they are deprecated and going away. So Reclaim Hosting have enforced any new domains that are created to inherit the system default PHP, which is 8.1. So anticipating this change, what we did last year was to get some updated WordPress themes for PHP 8.2 and higher for users to use. So these themes are available for both existing WordPress applications if you wish to upgrade them, and for new WordPress installations if you want to install going forward. So I have included links in my last slide on how to get these updated themes. They're already available on our support page. So you could just go there, grab them, and if you have a WordPress application that you wish to use any of these themes, you could upload it on the WP admin and test it out and get started. I will also walk you through the steps on how to install an application from the CMS, but I'm also going to focus on specifically WordPress installation, because we do have these two themes that we have available for new installations. So how to install an application through the CMS? As I showed, you log into the cPanel, and then remember the all applications on the dashboard. You go in there and then you browse or you search. There is a search bar. You can search for the application you want, and then you click install. So anytime you install an application, it is going to create an admin username and password. You could either keep the default or change it to something that you remember, but make sure you follow best practices for passwords and make sure they're secure and strong passwords. This is specific to WordPress installation. So you go to all applications and you search for WordPress, and you hit on install application. The next page is going to ask you where you want to install, which domain you want to install your application. So you pick that, and you either can install a clean WordPress application, or you could choose one of the two themes that we have available for 8.2 or higher PHP. Of course, you could use another theme outside these two, but these are the options we thought we could provide to our users because they're widely used. So now we know how to install a WordPress application with a theme that's compatible with PHP version. How do we actually update the PHP version for your domain? For that, you go to your dashboard again, and under the software tab, you do see the multi-PHP manager. So this is where you could set the version for each domain within the cPanel. For example, you have a cPanel abc.su domains. You could create a test abc.su domains. You could create a test subdomain. You could come in here and you could change the PHP version for that subdomain. You could do all the changes, test it out, make sure your website is up and running the way you like it. And then you can promote it to the production, clone the app back from the test to the production site. So to do that, you come under multi-PHP manager, and it's going to list all the domains that you have created. And you could select the one you want, check the box. And under the PHP version, there is a drop down that you could pick if you want 8.2, if you want 8.3, and then you hit apply. So by doing this, you make sure you don't directly make any changes on the production site. So you could keep creating subdomains, and when you're happy with the results, you can make the changes in the production, like a little staging area to play around. So that was PHP changes that's coming up on Stanford Domains platform, and how to install WordPress application that are compatible with latest PHP version. I want to talk about some takeaways and considerations. Stanford Domains is a web hosting platform to create sites. It's not a file sharing platform. So we recommend hosting your video files, PDFs, books, or even the backups, as I showed, to a file sharing platform like Google Drive, and point a link to the website. So this will greatly help with disk space and also with the bandwidth, because this is shared, and the bandwidth is also shared among all the other cPanels hosted. The cPanel, when you create them, they have the format something.su domains, but we could certainly create a custom stanford.edu URLs. Of course, they need to be approved and available to use, but it is an option if you want to set it up under your cPanel. So this is not just for a new URL setup, but let's say you want to move from AFS to Stanford Domains, or you want to move from vanity URL to Stanford Domains. If that is what you're looking for, we can work with the teams that are involved, and we could make the move happen. So this is not web.stanford.edu or sites.stanford.edu. They are different platforms managed by different teams. We manage Stanford Domains. So anytime you see su.domains extension, that is us. So as a cPanel owner, you are responsible for maintaining your site, for upgrades, for patches, plugins, as needed. We do conduct annual audit every year. So the purpose of this audit is to make sure all cPanels have an active SUNAT ID owner. During this audit, what we do is we send emails to all cPanel owners requesting to mark their selection if they want to keep or delete the cPanel. If we don't get a response by the end of the audit, after sending multiple reminders, we set a date and we start locking the cPanels, and eventually we delete them after giving some time. So if you are a cPanel owner, if you are an existing user of Stanford Domains, you might have already seen these emails in the past, or you will see one in the fall this year. For images that are hosted on Domains website, we expect them to be web ready. In my experience, I have seen images even within 100K or 50K. They have pretty good image quality. For example, images like headshots, if you have a speaker for an event that you're advertising on your website, or screenshots or posters, those could be very well under 100K, and I think they would still display good, unless you require these images for a scientific paper or a research, which might require higher quality. For accessibility guidelines, we expect the cPanel owner and the web developer to handle them, as they could be specific to each website. So I highly recommend visiting the guidelines website if you want to take a look at it. And also remember, Stanford Domains is one of the many options that are offered at UIT. You could visit this link right here. There is a matrix on where what you could, what options you could find, and you could compare on what's being offered and what will suit your needs. So here are all the links that I kept saying I have in my last slide. So this is the slide. And here is the service page. We have the home page. We have great documentation on our support page. I highly recommend go review it. And also we have open office hours. The Zoom info is on this link. It's you could drop by, or you could reach out to us if you want to talk more about your questions or your concerns. And here is a link to how to reach us to our help queue. So before I move on to questions, Larry, thanks for monitoring the chat. Would you like to add something?
One of the things I did want to point out is that non-responses result in locking of the cPanel, which actually also locks from view any of the websites that are hosted underneath that cPanel. So it's not simply a matter of locking the cPanel. It actually stops all traffic to the websites. That's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
The jet backup feature, it's important because it does not count against the bits that you have been allocated. So take full advantage of using jet backup and relying on it to restore either full or file by file. And if you do decide to link your cPanel to your Google Shared Drive, you can actually schedule either daily, weekly backups, and you can keep them for an extended period of time out there. That's all configurable under each website that Varshini was showing you under My Apps. Major CMS patches, the content management system patches like WordPress, Omeka, Drupal, they're all applied automatically for you, but you're responsible for ensuring that the plugins are supported and patched appropriately. Keep in mind that you're maintaining a Stanford resource, and we want to keep it safe for everybody. And we had one question here in the chat. It says, back when Stanford was on Drupal 7, site/domains hosted files. Is that correct? Now the newer platform is preferred to point to a shared drive. So domains was really never a platform. Stanford Domains, SU Domains, was not ever used as a platform to host sites or websites other than those hosted on SU Domains. It's been around for a while, since around 2015-ish. It started in VPSA, Vice Provost Office for Student Affairs, and then was handed over to University IT, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And it has really never hosted any other websites. We did a large project where we migrated a whole bunch of people off AFS over to Stanford Domains for those users that were using WordPress. most of the Drupal sites were moved over to either a managed Drupal site or a self-hosted Drupal site on sites. So that might be what you're talking about. Hopefully I answered that. They have different requirements with regards to where you store your files and that kind of stuff. But we're trying to use the minimum number of servers to host as many people as we can. And before we received our new servers, the bandwidth that was being used due to large books, some of them were over 250, 500 megabytes each. Some of the images that were being stored were 10 megs, 15 megs, 20 megs, and those just, it impacts not only the person downloading that image onto their computer, but it also affects everybody else trying to work on the computer. So that's why we want web-ready content, PDFs, and other files that can be stored on a shared drive. And it gives you the ability to share them appropriately, because on a shared drive, you can say, share only with the person that has the link, share with the world, make searchable, all that kind of stuff.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that completely makes sense. I think I've been using OneDrive as a go-to for my faculty, for example, who want their files protected, password protected. So that feels like a good way. But Google Drive, of course, works as well.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
So that's a question you can keep going.
Thanks for that. So some other questions that we keep seeing frequently are sometimes right after the audit season ends, we get tickets from users saying, hey, I'm not able to log into my cPanel. We see this more common right after the audit season ends, where we start locking down our cPanels with no responses. Probably once we log the cPanels, the sites are also not accessible, like Larry just mentioned. And users realize, oh, I should have responded to my audit. And we go in and we confirm what's really happening. And if we have to unsuspend, we unsuspend it. Also another consideration is if you know you are transitioning to a different department or transitioning out of Stanford, I highly recommend you share your cPanel to another colleague or a lab mate so that you don't lose the content, because remember, we are going to send audit every year. And if your SUNET ID, we don't get a response, we are going to lock it and eventually after a couple weeks or months, delete it. So if you want to continue having access to the content, consider doing it before you leave. So we have all the necessary approvals in place and there is no downtime when we lock it and then someone realizes it's not accessible.
I'd like to make 2 points on that. Our audit runs a fairly long time. It runs starting in the fall quarter and it runs into the beginning of the winter quarter. And so we send out at least 5 reminders to those people who haven't replied to the audit or answered the form. So we're trying to do our best spanning multiple quarters. And then sharing a cPanel, keep in mind when you share a cPanel, you should only share it with somebody that you trust, because they become a co-owner and there's no difference between you and them in the future. So if they wanted to drop the cPanel, they could place a request and have the cPanel dropped. And we don't check with anybody else. If there's multiple cPanel owners, that's how we roll.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other comments?
WordPress is fairly flexible. It has a ton of plugins, and they all do different things that can make your site look really great and protect it. So I would, if you're using WordPress, I would suggest that you take a look into the supported plugins. And some of them are free, some of them cost, but they're only for you. licensed to you, not other people on the platform. So it's a really great way to have a personal site or a lab site that looks different from everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's all I had.